They pulled her over without warning, flashing lights cutting through the gray morning like a blade. Before she could even reach for her ID, they had already found the bag, a small plastic pouch of white powder planted in her glove box. Calm and collected, she told them the truth. "That's not mine." But they didn't want to hear it. They pulled her over just 2 blocks from the pharmacy. No sirens, just lights and entitlement. Talia Monroe hadn't been in uniform in years. Not since she left the bureau, not since she stepped away from federal intelligence to live a quieter life. And it was working mostly. A modest condo near the canal, morning walks, no burner phones, no ops briefs, no encrypted messages that self-destructed 5 minutes after reading. Just her a grocery list and the memory of what it felt like to always be the smartest one in the room and the most underestimated. It was cloudy that morning in Richmond, cool, no wind. She wore a gray hoodie from her alma mater, some old slides, and a pair of black leggings. No purse, just her keys, phone, and the orange pill bottle she was going to refill for her migraines. Her hair was tied up in a loose knot, and she hadn't bothered with earrings or even chapstick. No reason to. It was just a quick errand. She noticed the cruiser before they noticed her same county car she'd seen making lazy loops around the neighborhood for weeks now. No calls, no emergencies, just the kind of cruising that meant they were fishing. And this morning they bit. Lights flashed behind her just as she passed the corner of 23rd and Maple. She pulled over calmly, putting the car in park, both hands on the wheel windows already halfway down. 2 officers. Deputy Kyle Denton, mid to late 40s, crisp haircut, steel jaw, and that vacant automatic confidence of a man who thought he'd seen enough to know everything. His partner, Officer Travis Myers, was younger, thicker around the waist, scanning everything with the nervous energy of a rookie who thought looking serious made up for inexperience. Denton leaned in. "License plate doesn't match the vehicle registration," he said flatly. Talia didn't argue. "You can run the vines," she said. "It's mine. Just registered it." But they didn't. Instead, Denton stepped back while Myers approached the passenger side, his eyes moving toward the glove compartment. "You got ID in there?" he asked. In the glove box, she nodded, eyes still forward, voice still steady. "You can take it." Myers didn't answer. He reached in himself. And that's when the script flipped hard and fast. He pulled out a small clear bag, Ziploc, uncreased, filled with white powder. Talia blinked. "That's not mine." Denton looked at her like she was an inconvenience more than a suspect. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." She didn't resist, didn't argue, didn't move fast or slow, just precisely. The cuffs were cold, tight. A neighbor jogged by on the sidewalk across the street, slowed, looked, then picked up pace again. She was placed in the back of their cruiser, eyes locked on the mirror, watching Myers put the bag in a paper envelope and seal it like it wasn't staged, like it hadn't been prepared, like it wasn't already sitting in his pocket when they pulled her over. They didn't know her name. Not really. They ran it once they got back to the station, said nothing about her clean record, didn't even blink at the fact that she had no priors, no infractions, no traffic violations. Instead, they fingerprinted her, took her shoelaces, put her in a holding cell that smelled like bleach sweat and tired injustice. She sat quietly on the bench, knees together, back straight. There were no windows, no clocks, just the sounds of shuffling feet, muffled chatter, and a toilet flushing, somewhere behind a metal wall. An hour passed, then 2. Then a woman came in, Officer Renee Dalton, early 50s, hair pulled into a tight bun, wedding ring, dulled from years of hand sanitizer and cheap latex gloves. She didn't speak at first, just looked at Talia with the kind of quiet calculation that only women who've seen too much too often can manage. "You from around here?" Dalton asked, not looking up as she pulled out the fingerprint sheet again. "Moved here 2 months ago," Talia replied. "Name Talia Monroe." Dalton looked closer at the sheet. Something flickered behind her eyes, subtle but there. "You don't seem too rattled," she said. "Panicking doesn't help." Dalton didn't smile, but she didn't scowl either. "Sit tight," she said. "I'll be back." She didn't say where she was going, and Talia didn't ask, because she already knew. There were always cracks, and there were always people who noticed them. The next morning came fast, but court was slower. They kept her in a gray jumpsuit, cuffs too tight, wrists red. They sat her in the defendant's box while 2 other men, white-loud oblivious, argued with the bailiff about coffee. Denton and Myers stood across the room, cleaned up now. Hair combed, shirts tucked, eyes smug. A judge walked in, papers shuffled. Talia's name was read out. And then the courtroom door opened. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Candace Ellerman walked in like the air belonged to her. Navy blue suit, minimal jewelry, thick folder in hand. Her heels echoed across the tile floor as she approached the bench without asking permission. "Your Honor," she said, "I'm representing Ms. Monroe, and I'd like to submit immediate evidence regarding her identity." The judge frowned but took the file. He opened the first page, stopped, read the second page, looked up. "Is this verified federal credentials?" Candace said. "Retired Bureau. Clearance level 9. Denton paled. Myers didn't move. The judge leaned back in his chair. He looked at the bailiff. "Uncuff her. Now." Talia didn't flinch. The cuffs clicked loose and she slowly rolled her shoulders. Didn't look at Candace. Didn't glance at the officers. Just forward. Always forward. The courtroom was silent. And just like that, everything they built in 24 hours crumbled in 30 seconds. The lies, the false evidence, the assumption that she was just another black woman behind the wheel of a nice car on a gray morning. It didn't matter who she used to be. It mattered that she'd been quiet, calm, methodical. Because now the game had changed. And Talia wasn't just walking out of that courtroom free. She was walking out with proof, with memory, with strategy. She didn't need revenge. She had the truth. And the receipts were just getting started. The judge's words still echoed in her ears as Talia stepped outside the courthouse. Uncuff her. Now. That moment was supposed to feel like freedom, but it didn't. Not really. It felt like unfinished business, like holding your breath in a room that still smells like smoke. She didn't look at Denton, didn't give Myers the satisfaction of a glance. They were already unraveling, even if they didn't know it yet. And Talia Monroe had no intention of walking away quietly. Back in her condo, the first thing she did was lock the door and sit at her desk. She reached under the bottom drawer where a magnetized key opened a slim panel. Inside, tucked in with old notebooks and a few government-issued lanyards she never threw away, was a tiny black flash drive. She plugged it into her laptop and pulled up the footage. High-res, wide-angle. Dash cam discreetly mounted behind her rearview mirror, disguised to look like factory casing. Denton's voice came through, first flat, authoritative, accusing. Then the moment Myers reached for her glove box, she paused the video, zoomed in, frame by frame. There, clear as day. He was already wearing latex gloves, not pulling them on, wearing them. She didn't move, just sat with that image, let it burn in. She watched him open the compartment, saw his fingers disappear, then reappear with the bag like it had always been there, like it hadn't been riding in his jacket pocket the whole time. She copied the footage to 2 backup drives. One went in a safety deposit box at a credit union 20 minutes away. The other she would hand off in person to Candace tomorrow. Talia didn't trust email, didn't trust secure cloud storage. She'd worked too many cases where that kind of trust had been weaponized. Candace wasted no time. By the next morning, she had already filed misconduct allegations with the county's Internal Affairs Division and submitted a formal request for body cam footage, which they conveniently claimed wasn't available due to technical failure. Classic. Talia wasn't surprised. She didn't need their cameras. She had her own. And now so did the press. The footage leaked on a Thursday, not through a national outlet, too slow, too many hoops. No, it was a local Richmond station run by a former investigative journalist Talia once saved from a cartel hit list in El Paso. The woman owed her. She delivered. The video played on the 6 p.m. news, blurred license plate, muted audio. But the moment Myers opened the glove box with gloves already on, unmistakable. The clip spread faster than gossip at a church potluck. Comments lit up like fireworks. That's a setup. She's lucky she had that cam. How many others didn't? That last one stuck with her because it was the question that mattered. And the answers came quick. A young black man came forward first, said Denton had pulled him over last year, made him sit on the curb for 45 minutes while his car was torn apart. No drugs, no report, no apology. Just a citation for vehicle obstruction. Then a Latina mother of 2 shared her story, arrested for resisting after she asked why her trunk was being searched. She was never charged but spent a night in lockup anyway. Then came the officers, former deputies who had transferred out or quit altogether. 3 of them. each with stories of Denton cutting corners of Myers, following orders like a soldier who never questioned the mission. One said he reported Denton twice. Nothing happened. The other said internal complaints just disappeared, like they were never filed, he said. Talia read every word, watched every interview. She kept a journal of it, all dates, names, incident numbers, badge numbers. She wasn't just building a case, she was drawing a map. And that's when things got ugly. It started with her mailbox pried open, mail scattered on the steps. Then her tires, slashed clean and even. Not the work of some teenager with a grudge. This was precise, surgical. Then the black SUV that parked across the street from her condo 3 nights in a row. Same plate, same tinted windows. No one ever got out. No one ever came in. Talia didn't flinch. She simply moved the dash cam from her car to her living room window. Angle perfect, motion activated, footage time-stamped. The next morning she waved at the SUV. It didn't return after that, but she knew better than to relax. She'd seen men shot for less. One night she caught a figure outside her unit door. Shadow against shadow. By the time she opened it, they were gone. Just a faint whiff of cologne, and a folded note slipped under the mat. It read, "Stay quiet." She laughed. That same night she called Jonas Braddock, her old colleague from the DOJ Civil Rights Division. They hadn't spoken in 3 years, not since a joint task force in Detroit. She told him everything. He didn't ask for evidence. He just said, "Send it, all of it, I'll escalate." By Monday, the DOJ had opened a preliminary inquiry into the sheriff's department. The sheriff responded the way most do through a press release. "We take these matters seriously." At this time, the officers in question have been temporarily reassigned to administrative duties, pending further review. Reassigned, not suspended, not investigated, just moved behind a desk and told to keep their heads down until the fire died out. But this wasn't dying. This was spreading. Protesters showed up outside the county building. First 10, then 50. By the end of the week, over 200. Signs, chants, news vans. People from other counties started driving in just to stand in front of that building and be seen. And in the middle of it all, Talia kept her silence. She didn't do interviews, didn't post on social media, didn't hold press conferences. She let the footage speak, let the silence build tension like a wire pulled tight. And then she dropped a match. Candace filed a public records lawsuit to release all body cam footage from Denton and Myers over the last 12 months. The county stalled, cited privacy concerns. Talia smiled. That meant they were scared. That meant the footage existed. She just had to keep pressing. And while the county danced around their own fire, Talia kept building her case. She traced Denton's financial disclosures, public record for law enforcement officers in Virginia. Found inconsistencies. A jump in assets that didn't match his salary. 3 shell LLCs tied to a towing company on the outskirts of town. She flagged it. Sent it to Jonas. He flagged it again. Sent it up the chain. Behind closed doors, the pressure was rising. But out in the open, the threats got worse. Her building was tagged with spray paint "snitch" scrawled across the back wall of the parking lot. Her neighbor's dog poisoned. A bottle of bleach tossed at her front steps. Still, she didn't leave. She upgraded her security system, installed shatterproof film on her windows, carried a legal Glock in a discreet holster under her coat just in case. And she waited, because she knew what was coming. The storm wasn't over. It was just getting organized. And so was she. The storm wasn't over. It was organizing. And so was she. Talia Monroe sat at her kitchen table beneath the dim light of a single pendant bulb fingers, skimming over files, names, numbers, and notes she'd compiled over weeks. Outside, the rain tapped softly against the window pane, but inside the tension was heavier than thunder. It had been 3 days since her tires were slashed 4, since she caught a figure outside her door, and just 12 hours since Jonas Braddock had called her back with a sentence that finally cracked the ice. They're sending in marshals. That morning, Kyle Denton was arrested without fanfare. No news vans, no sirens. Just 2 plainclothes U.S. Marshals waiting by the staff entrance of the sheriff's office, one of them tapping politely on the door like they were there for a lunch appointment. Denton didn't resist, didn't speak. He simply nodded, stepped out into the hallway, and vanished. Talia didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. She watched the surveillance footage. Candace sent her a silent clip of the arrest, and then she saved it to a drive and slid it into a file labeled Closure Pending. She'd seen arrests before, thousands. They didn't mean anything if the rot beneath them stayed untouched. The real crack came 2 days later. Travis Myers, looking pale and deflated, signed a deal in exchange for a lighter sentence. He admitted to planting evidence. Not once. Dozens of times. Under Denton's direction. Always with the same MO: stop a black or brown driver, claim a license mismatch, refuse to check the VIN search without probable cause, and find something. Small enough to justify the stop, big enough to destroy a record. But Myers went further. He gave names, patterns. He talked about forged reports, about unofficial quotas passed around like secrets in locker rooms, about the deputies who knew and the ones who were too scared to care. The DOJ didn't need a second invitation. Oversight became investigation. Investigation became prosecution. And right in the middle of that chaos, Talia received a manila envelope. No return address, no note, no fingerprint on the seal. Inside, 10 years of financial statements, bank transfers in small amounts, never more than $400 or $500 to avoid flags. LLC paperwork tied to fake businesses, Gulf Line Towing, Apex Salvage, Southern Auto Services, all registered in Richmond, all connected to the Denton family. It wasn't just about bad cops. It was about a system, one that profited from arrests, bail, asset forfeiture, and silence. Talia's hands didn't shake as she flipped through the pages. They didn't clench. They didn't even move quickly. She had trained her entire life for moments like this, when the truth finally gave itself up. Candace reviewed the documents that same afternoon. By evening, Jonas had looped in 3 senior prosecutors, and the next morning an emergency audit was announced across 5 counties. The walls were finally shaking, but Talia didn't stop there. She refused every interview request, declined invitations from national TV morning talk shows and podcasts that begged for her voice. She didn't want to be a face for something that was never supposed to happen in the first place. She didn't want applause for surviving what others never got the chance to fight. Instead, she walked into a modest gymnasium in Southside Richmond, where 180 middle school students sat in folding chairs, too young to vote, too old to believe the system was fair. She wore a plain black sweater, jeans, and sneakers. No script, no entourage, just a microphone that kept crackling as she spoke. "I want you to know," she said, voice low but unwavering, "you're not crazy for being afraid sometimes. That doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you guilty. It makes you aware." The room was still. "You'll hear things," she continued, "that you need to act a certain way, dress a certain way, talk less, shrink yourself just to survive. But I'm here to tell you it's not your job to make yourself small to feel safe. It's their job to stop making you unsafe in the first place." One girl, maybe 11, raised her hand. "Are you still a cop?" Talia smiled gently. "I'm still fighting bad people," she said, "but I don't need a badge to do that." Afterward, the teachers clapped. A few students hugged her. One gave her a drawing of a lion with a crown. She folded it and kept it in her bag. Then she got back to work. Behind the scenes, Talia had joined a reform initiative, being drafted by civil rights attorneys and policy advisors. The goal pushed for statewide law enforcement accountability legislation. She wasn't the face of it. She made sure of that. But she was the brain in the room, the one who pointed out loopholes in probable cause language, the one who fought for independent civilian oversight boards with real teeth, not symbolic rubber stamps. Jonas called her one night and said, "You could run this thing, you know." She shook her head. "It's not about me." He paused. "I know. That's why people are listening." 2 weeks later, the sheriff who oversaw Denton and Myers resigned under pressure. No press conference, just a PDF announcement on the department's website and a shuttered office the next morning. But the rot went deeper. 6 more deputies quietly retired. Internal Affairs launched a separate inquiry into the handling or mishandling of at least 19 previous arrests connected to Denton's team. Several defense attorneys filed motions to vacate convictions, and the media. They finally stopped calling her a former agent and started calling her what she really was: the reason the county was on fire. One night, coming home from the grocery store, Talia found a neighbor waiting in the stairwell. He was tall, wore hospital scrubs, mid-30s. She'd seen him a few times before. He always nodded but never spoke. That night he did. "Hey," he said, "I just wanted to say thank you for not letting it slide." She looked at him. "I almost did." He nodded slowly. "But you didn't." No, she said. I couldn't. He hesitated, then held out his hand. She shook it. The fight wasn't over. Probably never would be. But things had changed because she hadn't gone quiet, because she didn't let them tell the story without her, because sometimes the voice they try hardest to silence becomes the one echoing in every hallway, every precinct, every courtroom. Not because it yells, but because it remembers and never lets them forget what they did. Talia Monroe's story isn't just about one woman standing up to a corrupt system. It's about the power of truth in the face of silence. It's a reminder that justice isn't always handed to you. It's often something you have to dig for, fight for, and protect at all costs. What happened to Talia could happen to anyone. She was calm, lawful, and composed, yet still she was targeted. Why? Because in the eyes of those officers, her identity, her silence, her skin color made her easy to dismiss. But she wasn't. She had the wisdom, the tools, and the courage to push back. And because of that, an entire system was exposed. So what's the lesson? Never underestimate the importance of documentation and preparation. Talia didn't yell or threaten, she recorded. She documented. She stayed calm when others expected her to fall apart. That's a powerful form of resistance. Whether it's a dash cam in your car, a copy of your records, or knowing your rights, your greatest shield is often the truth you can prove. Secondly, your voice matters even when you think no one is listening. Talia didn't go viral. She didn't become a celebrity. But her quiet determination sparked investigations, exposed decades of abuse, and helped draft real reform. She didn't need millions of followers. She just needed to not back down. And lastly, help others when they can't help themselves. Talia didn't stop once she was free. She kept fighting. For the kid who got stopped for looking suspicious. For the mother who was cuffed in front of her children. For the ones without a lawyer, without a camera, without a second chance. So here's our advice to you. Stay alert. Know your rights. Document what you can. Speak up when you see injustice. And never ever assume your voice doesn't matter, because it does. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to be consistent. From all of us here at US Justice Story, thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of a community that believes justice isn't optional, it's essential. If this story moved you, share it. Talk about it. And let it be a reminder, some battles are quiet, some are loud, but all are worth fighting, especially when they shine a light on the darkness others are still trapped in. Until next time, stay aware, stay prepared, and stay brave.